Ladies and gentlemen, will you please rise for the invocation to be given by Rabbi Joshua Elkin, headmaster of the Solomon Schechter Day School of Greater Boston, and remain standing to join Dean David Gould in the singing of the first stanza of America the Beautiful.
President Altman, Dr. Sacker, Mr. Chairman Louis Perlmutter, graduating class of 1991, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct honor to be here to help open these commencement exercises. This is a notable commencement, a new beginning not only for our graduates, but also a pivotal transition and a new beginning for Brandeis University as a whole as we join in welcoming in the Samuel Thier era. Today belongs to our assemblage of graduates who join today the ranks of Brandeis's distinguished alumni. I turn to the weekly Torah portion for inspiration. In the yearly cycle, Jews are reading from the early part of the book of Numbers, where the recently freed Hebrew slaves take to complaining once again about their lot in the desert, and I quote, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. And now our gullets are shriveled. There's nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to." In rabbinic commentary on the passage in Exodus, which describes the actual crossing of the sea, we read that complaining also took place in the midst of the spectacular escape from the Egyptians, and I quote, "When they descended into the midst of the sea, they found that it was full of clay, because it was still wet from the water, and so it formed a kind of clay. Then Reuben said to Simon, 'In Egypt we had clay, and now in the sea we have clay again. In Egypt we had bricks and mortar, and now in the sea again mortar and bricks.' The former slaves remember how they used to eat free in Egypt, and they focus only on the mud and the muck, even in the midst of the momentous events and a life of freedom unfolding before their very eyes. These selections, hundreds and even thousands of years old, reveal aspects of human nature which I appeal to you, the graduates, to resist strenuously as you move forward with your lives. We expend much too much energy bemoaning what we lack, rather than appreciating the gifts, the wonders, and the blessings that are with us daily. But even more significantly, these sources shed light on the specific realities of freedom and liberty. It is not sufficient to see freedom as a political reality. Freedom is also a state of mind, an attitude toward life and its infinite possibilities, rather than its limitations and obstacles. No one has written more eloquently about this internal sense of freedom than Anatoly Sharansky, the famous Soviet dissident, whose story is immortalized in his autobiography, Fear No Evil. I quote from his reflections on being imprisoned. "I had to take everything that was dear to me, everything that had meaning in my life, with me to prison. The world I recreated in my head turned out to be more powerful and more real than the world of La Fortieth prison. My bond with my wife Avital was stronger than my isolation, and my inner freedom more powerful than the external bondage. Mysticism turned into reality, and through my prayers, I seemed to admit the power of an external force that my rational mind had denied." May Sharansky's words be an inspiration to each one of you today. Seek the values and promote the reality of justice and freedom in all your endeavors, but couple that pursuit with an awareness that your own inner strength and freedom represent enormous resources that can be in and of themselves forces for good in your own lives, and also forces for good for your loved ones, for your friends, for your communities, and for the world. On this commencement day, may you and this university each move forward from strength to strength.
Oh, beautiful for spacious God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
These commencement exercises will be in order. The university celebrates today its 40th commencement and welcomes back, among others, the classes of 1956, 1961, and 1966 for their 35th, 30th, and 25th reunions. Will the classes of 1956, 61, and 66 please rise and be recognized? Brandeis University expresses its profound gratitude to those members of the faculty who now become professors emeriti. Will these members of the faculty who are present today please rise? Egon Bittner, Harry Copeland Professor in the Social Sciences, and Marshall Sclair, Klutznick Family Professor of Contemporary Jewish Studies and Sociology. Mr. Louis Perlmutter, class of 1956, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, will offer greetings.
I just had to take a minute to pause and look at all of you because it's such the warmth and joy and excitement emanates from all of you, and it's a great moment. President Altman, my fellow trustees, distinguished guests, members of the class of 1991, parents, friends, and whoever it was who made this glorious commencement day, welcome. I wish to include a special word of welcome to our honorary degree recipients, whose presence with us today brings honor to our university. And to each of you who will today receive a Brandeis degree, the trustees join me in extending warmest congratulations. Through your hard work and academic achievements, you have arrived at this commencement. It is an honor and a pleasure for us to participate with you and your families in celebrating your accomplishments. It is our hope that the experience of the last 4 years has provided you with the intellectual and social tools, and above all, the determination to challenge the problems and pursue the opportunities that lie before you. Commencements are aptly named because they represent a beginning, not an ending. Learning is a lifelong process, one that Brandeis has empowered you through your formal education to pursue and cultivate. And as you encounter both the opportunities and the challenges that await you in the years ahead, your success will reflect not only on you as an individual, but also on your alma mater and the efforts of the faculty and all those who contributed to your Brandeis experience. But today is a day of celebration. Standing here, looking at you, sharing your excitement and sensing the pride you deservedly have for yourselves and your classmates, all of us, trustees, administrators, parents, friends, and most important of all, the faculty. Feel certain you are up to the challenge. On behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Trustees, I bid you good health, long life, and every good wish for success in your future endeavors. God bless and thank you.
Jeremy Pressman, candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, will deliver the senior address.
friends, faculty, parents, and of course, distinguished members of the class of '91. I must begin by thanking all of you for your support, and I dedicate this speech to the supporters of choice and free speech across our country. When Jimmy Carter was defeated in 1980, many people forecast his disappearance from the political scene. His ideas were seemingly discredited, his policies apparent failures. Yet Carter did not retreat into country clubs and million-dollar speaking engagements. Instead, he continued to pursue his goals of peace and justice. Today, with much greater recognition, he continues to struggle for humanitarian causes around the globe. Despite the difficulties he faced, Carter did not give up his central values or lose his focus. He persevered and emerged stronger than before. I often wonder why we, as individuals and as institutions, find so many excuses to lose focus. Brandeis was like Carter. After years at the top, we entered a traumatic transitional period. I remember in the midst of the pork and shellfish controversy, I suddenly wondered who really cared. The administration's decision to introduce pork products into the Used-In cafeteria had generated enormous adverse publicity. This culinary episode, which became a subject of cocktail party talk. So, Jeremy, you're at Brandeis. I hear they're force-feeding ham to all the incoming students. Was suddenly so meaningless to me in the framework of higher education. To many of us, it symbolized a number of decisions and events that revealed the depth of Brandeis's confusion and disarray. Sadly, the fundamentals were being submerged under a growing list of public relations disasters. Was Brandeis really about dietary decisions? And so I, of course, had to decide what Brandeis was about. It wasn't enough to know what it was not. By not defining Brandeis's mission and not focusing on the essential elements, we are jeopardizing the education of future graduates. Hopefully, my personal thoughts on Brandeis's mission will be useful. In my first year, when my friend bought a used trumpet for $40, we went up on the roof of East Quad and played that trumpet. Unfortunately for the other Quad residents, we didn't know how to play. Soon, however, we realized that noise-making was not the essence of a Brandeis education. A few weeks ago, I proudly finished my thesis. Like many senior thesis writers, I was worried about the faculty evaluation of my work. The next day, after I turned it in, an answer of sorts came to my mailbox. It was a letter from the dean of the college. Dear member of the class of '92, would you like to write a senior thesis next year? I knew I had some weak arguments, but I did not realize that my thesis was so bad I should start all over again. But again, this administrative error did not detract from Brandeis's principal strength. Looking back, I could not ask for much more from the Brandeis faculty. At this school, with its small size and university status, the opportunity for individual research, thesis work, independent study, and faculty mentor programs is unsurpassed. With my thesis advisor, I enjoyed the chance to discuss American politics, the progress of my thesis, or Brandeis issues. I learned more than just the mechanics of academia. To me, this is half the equation, half of Brandeis's mission. Forget all the glitz, the PR stunts. If Brandeis wants students to come here, and the best students at that, here is the principal attraction. These opportunities are less available at other undergraduate institutions. As Brandeis faces budgetary reductions, Intimate faculty-student partnerships must be protected. It would be easy, too easy, to increase class size and reduce the number of faculty. But this would bring additional revenue at a huge cost: the academic strength and integrity of Brandeis University. In addition, the administration and our class as new alumni should get our act together and learn how to play the trumpet that spreads this message, this aspect of the Brandeis education. A university education, after all, is about learning, about taking advantage of the greatest resources of our professors. But like every coin, there are two sides. And while I think that our faculty, often despite the university, has succeeded on one level, our community has also failed. There is the extra burden of a liberal arts education that we have neglected, the national and world community. Brandeis's educational environment offers too little guidance for helping the weak. When it was time for war, most Brandeis students were ready to stand up and support the president. But when the Brandeis Coalition for Peace distributed fake draft notices, and some students suddenly felt they might have to back up their intellectual gymnastics with concrete action, anger and resentment quickly surfaced. When Kurds starved and died on Turkish mountainsides, a fully clothed, well-fed Brandeis student said he could not give money to relief efforts because his problems were as bad as the Kurds. Most of us do not understand suffering, and in that way, this university, this society has failed. Our profound ignorance of the American hungry and homeless has been deeply reinforced by this past decade of greed and egocentrism. Reagan said by his policies, "Think only about yourself and your needs," and perhaps Brandeis reflects this outlook. Somehow, food and shelter have become a liberal issue. But are there any of us, left or right, Democrat or Republican, that wish to give up our winter sweater, our warm blanket, our daily meals? We would not, and others should not have to. When we possess the tools and the resources to confront inhumanity, yet we continue to stand by, something is wrong with our education. And so, as Brandeis stands alone on the intellectual side, I ask too that we forge a new approach on the communal side. Even if the rest of society abdicates responsibility for the downtrodden, Brandeis must incorporate an element of caring. Mandatory communal service, annual seminars on contemporary suffering that apply the knowledge we gain in regular classrooms, or a Brandeis Presidential Service Corps might begin to create this new understanding. Finding the proper remedy is not easy, but the problem demands new action. James Earl Carter paused, refocused, and vigorously fought for his basic values. All along, he knew what really mattered. For us, the message is the same. Learning with discussion, reading, and insight. Community with caring and sacrifice. These are the building blocks of the rejuvenated Brandeis. Whether on the intellectual side, it is expanding and explaining an existing strength. Or whether on the communal side, it is adding a new element to incorporate our changing world. We must focus to overcome the existing disarray. I am thankful for my time here, and I hope Brandeis will only move forward. Thank you.
The chairman of the Board of Trustees will present the candidates for the several degrees to the president of the university.
President Altman, I have the honor to inform you that in accordance with the recommendations and that of the faculty of the university, the Board of Trustees, by virtue of the rights granted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has voted to authorize you to admit these men and women to the several degrees in arts and philosophy.
Will the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts please rise?
President Altman, I have the honor of presenting to you the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Brandeis University, I now confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts and do hereby grant all the rights, privileges, honors, and dignity pertaining thereto.
Bachelors of Arts, please be seated. Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts, Master of Fine Arts, and Master in Management of Human Services please rise?
President Altman, I have the honor of presenting to you the candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts, Master of Fine Arts, and Master in Management of Human Services.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Brandeis University, I now confer upon you the degrees of Masters of Arts, Masters of Fine Arts, and Masters in Management of Human Services, and do hereby grant all the rights, privileges, and honors and dignities pertaining thereto.
Masters of Arts, Masters of Fine Arts, and Masters in Management of Human Services, please be seated. Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences please come forward? Robert Allen Arkowitz. Enriqueta Canseco Gonzalez. Graham Casano. Mark A. Dombrowski. Daria Louise Donnelly. Lung Ying Fong. Wendy E. Gamber. Ellen J. Goldner. Peter Conrad Hayner. Stephen L. Hamelman. Sharon Friedman Hausdorf. Carl G. Hill. James Richard Hughes. Michael Gordon Jackson. Shuyung Kao. Suwon Kim. Mary Beth Clay.
They're not doing it. No, come to take it off in the beginning.
Now Lam. Bernard M. Levinson. Jiayang Li. Sen Liu. Michael Marison. Linda E. Martin Morris. Walter William Masevsky, Jr. John Edward Merritt. Todd Martin Miller. Nora Janeway Mitchell. John Christopher Nelson. Stephanie Limburg Oranger. Camden Ashley Parks. Sally Pincus. Zyuki Kian. Francine Donnell Rachel. Mira Yaffa Schreiber. Evangelos Simudis. Patrice M. Somé. Carlton Cardun Suhu. Susan L. Tannenbaum. Mark Peterson Taylor. Becky Wangsgard Thompson. Sarah Catherine Whalen. Michael H. Weinstein. Bingley Wu. Ziru Zhang.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Brandeis University, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and do hereby grant all the rights, privileges, honors, and dignities pertaining thereto. Congratulations.
Doctors of Philosophy, please be seated. Will the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Social Welfare from the Florence Heller Graduate School for Advanced Studies in Social Welfare please come forward? Robin Irvin Clark. Sharon K. Davis. Marjorie E. Erickson. Charles Foster.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Carol Hardy Fanta.
Thanks for everything. Thank you.
Elba Caraballo, Ireland. Paula N. Eisman. Sarita Lynn Caron. Martha Chichi Senzangane Mabatha. Barbara Ann Pine. Robin A. Robinson. Phoebe B. Sessions. Carol Reagan Shelton. Sharon Mary Sokoloff. Christopher P. Tompkins. Nancy Marie Valentine. Guo Yo Wong.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Brandeis University, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Social Welfare, and do hereby grant all the rights, privileges, honors, and dignities pertaining thereto. Congratulations.
Doctors of Philosophy, please be seated. The President of the Brandeis University Alumni Association, Mr. Charles Eisenberg, class of 1970.
Thank you. If you ever want a humbling experience, try speaking with Dr. Abram Sacker sitting behind you. I think before I start, I want to just thank President Altman for the wonderful job that he's done this year. He's really saved us, and I think he deserves to be thanked. I also want to thank the class of 1991 for the magnificent job that you've done this year in the last 4 years. And I particularly want to thank you for the class gift that you raised, and the students to whom it will go in the years to come will greatly appreciate it. You did a beautiful job. Thank you. I sat where you're sitting 21 years ago. It was kind of a different day. It was cloudy and a little bit rainy. There were U.S. soldiers fighting in Cambodia. U.S. troops and police had been going onto campuses and shooting students on their campuses. It was kind of a different time, to say the least. We had commencement without caps and gowns, without speakers. It was a time of some anger and some fear, and yet, looking out at you, I'm struck a lot more by the similarities than I am by the differences. Behind me still sits one of the very best faculties in the entire world. And in front of me, I see a group of people who could just as easily have been members of my class or the class of 66 or 56. For 40 years, Brandeis students have represented something very unique, a combination of passion for education and a commitment to societal change. Through the fads and the phases, Brandeis has remained a place of significant academic rigor where scholarship is revered. Everybody talks about how hard it is to get through Brandeis. The secret is it really is hard. It was hard when I was here, and it's hard now. And anybody who doesn't believe that should go by the library on Friday or Saturday night and see how many people are there, or late on Sunday night. Those of you who don't are the lucky ones, the smart ones. Yet as difficult as the academic program at Brandeis is, Brandeis students do look up from their books occasionally. You, like your predecessors, have demonstrated a strong sense of justice and a commitment to changing things for the better. You don't always agree. I read the justice, I can tell. But debate is a Brandeis tradition, and that continues too. Now, as in the past, you're engaged, not detached. Commitment may be out of style in the country, and yet you still have you still care enough to take positions, to work in Waltham, to work on causes, to oppose policies, even when they're popular in the country. Commitment has never been out of style at Brandeis, and it never will be. Brandeis is the home not only to scholar athletes, but also to scholar activists. I think that Dr. Sacker, as usual, said it best, and I told him on Friday I was going to steal this from him, when he said with some pride that Brandeis is not an ivory tower, but more of an ivory foxhole. There's been a lot of talk lately about the mission of Brandeis University, as though that was some kind of a complex enigma. I don't think it's particularly complicated. The mission of Brandeis University is to educate, nurture, and graduate men and women like yourselves. It's as simple as that. We, the alumni, are very, very proud of you. And on behalf of your fellow alumni, I'm honored to welcome you to our ranks, to wish you all the best in the years to come, and to say thank you very much for choosing to come to Brandeis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Brandeis University, Dr. Stuart H. Altman.
Members of the class of 1991, your parents, our faculty, trustees, and friends, I'd like to give my greetings to all and to congratulate you on this both beautiful day. As Dean of the Graduate Program, let me also add my congratulations to the spouses, significant others, and children of our graduates as well. You surely deserve special praise. And finally, as I was reminded yesterday, a special vote of thanks and congratulations to all the grandparents in the audience. I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees and the faculty for giving me the opportunity to serve as your president for this year. This has been a remarkable and rewarding experience for me that I will never forget. It has been my privilege to tell the Brandeis story to audiences from coast to coast, including prospective students and their families and the many individuals who we look to for support. I've truly spoken of pride about the qualities and uniquenesses of our great institution and our dedicated faculty and staff, and our beautiful campus, which has never been more beautiful than today, and the quality of our research staff and facilities. But most of all, I've talked with tremendous pride about you, our outstanding students. Today is a very special occasion for me as well. Like you, I too will be receiving a degree. Now, while mine will be honorary and yours is real, I hope you will let me call myself a member of the class of 1991. I'm a little slower than you. It took me 15 years to pull this one off. As Dean of the Heller School, I've been an active participant in 14 Brandeis commencements. I know well that these are significant events in the life of the university. They mark the climax of the academic year and thus give us a convenient vantage point both to look back at what we've accomplished and forward toward all that remains to be done. When we adjourn today, many of you will exchange the sheltered and nurturing confines of the academy for that rough and tumble world that lies beyond. We are hopeful that what you have learned here has prepared you well, and we are reassured by our knowledge that all of the classes, the 39 classes of Brandeis graduates before and what they have accomplished. Many, in fact, are here today to celebrate their class reunions, and again, I'd like to thank them one and all. If experience is our guide, the chances are very good that we have given you the basic skills that you will need to succeed. Of course, the rest really is up to you. But what about that so-called real world out there? How does it look on May 26, 1991, midway through the second year of the last decade of this 20th century? My interest in this, like yours, is no longer strictly academic, for I will be joining you out there this fall, even if only for 1 year, while I take a sabbatical, leaving before returning to the deanship of the Heller School. If we were to frame our view of the current state of affairs entirely by what we read in the newspapers and see on the evening news, we would have to say that things don't look very good at all. By most accounts, these are tough times. Here at home, economic problems have triggered a string of bank and S&L failures, the likes of which we have not seen since the Great Depression, and produced the highest unemployment rates in recent memories. People who have jobs are working longer and harder just to make ends meet. Poverty, homelessness, and hunger are on the rise. Diseases like AIDS and cancer continue to exact a terrible toll, and people die every day because they cannot afford basic health care or because they have the misfortune to live on the wrong part of town. Yet, in the face of all this, more public officials across the country are cutting deeply into expenditures for housing, education, public safety, health and human service programs. It really seems as though we've lost our way. Of course, the problems we face here in America pale by comparison to the hardships that people in many other parts of the world endure. Few in America would trade places with the Kurds in Iraq, the population at large in Bangladesh or Ethiopia, or large segments of society in Russia and Eastern Europe, Latin America, Central America, Africa, or Asia. Yes, these are tough times at home and abroad, but this need not be, and it must not be, a time for self-indulgence and despair. And that is the real message I want to leave you with here today. Many historians and economists have observed that events tend to move in cycles. One theory espoused by the noted historian Arthur Schlesinger holds that social and economic events move in 30-year intervals. If the decades of the 1980s was a time of prosperity and complacency, so too were the decades of the 1920s and the 1950s. In contrast, the 1930s and the 1960s were the decades of social change. If the pattern continues, and there are signs that it will, we are in for a period of significant restructuring in the 1990s. What form it will take and what fruit it will bear will really depend upon the course that you, the class of 1991, will set, and others of your generation. That is why, as I look over this class, I'm optimistic about the future. I do not keep company with the critics and naysayers who bemoan the mythical decline in the quality of American higher education. The truth is that graduates of schools like Brandeis are as well educated today as they have ever been, and in some respects, you are the best educated. I'm confident, and you should be too, that you have the capacity to meet the challenges of the 1990s and beyond. One need only look at today and think back to February or late January, where many of you parents were calling me, asking me whether it was safe to send your children back to Brandeis, and we were putting barricades up and police on the front gates. Look how truly beautiful our campus is. May is a beautiful month. This is the beginning of a new era. Equally important, I sense in you a renewed concern for the common good. The we generation has finally replaced the me generation, and just in the nick of time. Because history beckons us to renew and expand our social compact and reflect changing times and needs. While political freedom and individual liberty must remain the cornerstone of that compact, it must be broadened to provide economic security for all Americans, freedom from hunger, freedom from homelessness, and freedom from financial ruin caused by prolonged illness. Work on these latter issues, freedom from financial ruin caused by prolonged illness, will occupy much of my time during my sabbatical year. The United States needs a national health insurance plan that provides comprehensive coverage for all Americans. And is designed to be affordable to a country whose national income is growing by 1% to 2% a year. But it must also be an American solution, not one that is copied from other countries. We will preserve our true strengths, but yet we need to move forward. It's not going to be easy, but I'm optimistic that something meaningful will happen, and it will happen in our generation. What is really needed is the development of a broad-gauge national consensus that will set the new social compact. This will require leadership and commitment from women and men like yourselves who have received the very best liberal education. In a way, we are in a transition phase between the excesses of the 1980s and hopefully a more humane society of the 1990s. As graduates of a university named Brandeis, you share in the rich legacy of a distinguished American jurist whose name is synonymous with social and economic justice under the law. Many of you have already put these ideals to work during your years at Brandeis, whether it has been through the participation in undergraduate community involvement programs such as the Waltham Group, or through graduate-level initiatives through the Heller School or the Hornstein Program. Now, as you leave the university, I urge you to take a piece of the Brandeis spirit with you, wherever you go and whatever you do. Get involved, stay involved, don't give up. Society has given you a lot. It's your turn to give something back. Congratulations and Godspeed.
The Chairman of the Board of Trustees will present the candidates for honorary degrees to the President of the University.
President Altman, by the enactment of Chapter 123 of the Acts of 1951, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts authorized Brandeis University to confer honorary degrees. I have the privilege to instruct you to confer the following honorary degrees upon these persons for their singular achievements.
Milton Babbitt. Acclaimed composer, educator, and scholar, your pioneering work is recognized at home and abroad. For more than half a century at one of America's great universities, you have guided young musicians and composers. A co-founder of the Columbia-Princeton Electronic Music Center and a faculty member at the Juilliard School, your many honors include a MacArthur Fellowship, the Joseph A. Barnes Prize, the New York Music Critics Citation, the National Institute of Arts and Letters Award, a Pulitzer Prize Special Citation, the George Peabody Medal, and a Brandeis Creative Arts Award. Your acceptance of our honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters, in recognition of your many talents and distinguished contributions to the world of music, brings distinction to our university.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Milton Babbitt the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed, and affixed the seal of the university.
Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte, consummate musician, actor, producer, and human rights activist, you have enriched us all, making our world a better place in which to live. As a creative artist, you are the first African American to win an Emmy and the first musician to record an album that sold over 1 million copies. A longtime human rights activist, you count among your many honors being only the second American ever to be named a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. Brandeis University takes pride in saluting a respected citizen of the world.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Harry Belafonte the honorary degree of Doctors of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Fantastic.
Just very briefly, I would like to exercise a privilege. I would like to thank Brandeis University, in particular Norman Rabb, one of the oldest founding members of the trusteeship of the school, for having nominated me, having been one of the men who designed the personality of this institution. I am deeply indebted to him that he should have seen fit to nominate me. Obviously, I've been doing something right. I have found the world at large to be a very troubled place, perhaps a bit more troubled for you than the way it was when I found it. But I've also found that in getting people to understand that we have much more in common with one another than we do not has worked to great measure to making life a more meaningful and a more joyous experience. I've done it through music. I've done it through the ability to get people to sing when they least thought they could sing or would, and to sing about things they least thought they had any reason to sing about. I would like to take this opportunity to continue in that tradition. This won't be long. I'd like to ask that I be assisted in this process. Not only by my fellow graduates, by everyone else sitting on the grass, and those of you who worked hard for this day. It's a song that made people in the world take notice of a place in the world from which I came, and from a family who, as peasants, struggled hard and long to carve out a life of decency for themselves. Anyone who sings this song sings to the praise of those people. All you have to do is to follow me. I don't hear the people on the grass. Day-o. Daylight come and me want go home. Daylight come and me want go home. Day. Me said day, me said day, me said day, me said day, me said day. Me said day, me said day, me said day, me said day, me said day. Daylight come and me want go home. Daylight come and me want go home. Shalom.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commencement be in order, please. Daniel Bell. Distinguished scholar and insightful commentator on contemporary society, your vision of America is global in perspective and transcends the boundaries of any single discipline. The breadth of your vision is reflected in such works as The End of Ideology, The Coming of Post-Industrial Society, The Cultural Contradictions of Capitalism, and The Reforming of General Education, a topic as relevant today as it was a quarter century ago when you received the gold medal of the American Council of Education. As a teacher, educator, and scholar, You have earned the respect and admiration for which Brandeis is proud to award you its highest honor.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Daniel Bell the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereunto are pertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma and duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Congratulations.
Marvin L. Goldberger. World-renowned physicist and accomplished academic leader. From your work as a young man on the Manhattan Project to the development of collision theory and your prophetic insights on dispersion theory and elementary particles, you have distinguished yourself through your fundamental contributions to theoretical physics. As president of the California Institute of Technology and now director of the Institute for Advanced Study, you have exhibited the breadth of vision that is the hallmark of great educational leadership. Brandeis University is privileged to recognize your unique talents and contributions to both science and higher education.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Marvin L. Goldberger the honorary degree of Doctor of Science and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma and duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Congratulations.
Maxine Hong Kingston. Gifted writer of unusual craft and style, your award-winning works weave together exotic images of the Orient and everyday experiences in America. Through The Woman Warrior, China Men, and other works, you have enabled us to find beauty and order in a world too often filled with suffering and senseless violence. For your literary skill in illuminating the human condition from many different perspectives, Brandeis University bestows upon you its highest honor.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Maxine Hong Kingston the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Congratulations.
Olowatepe Abimbola Mabagunje. Distinguished Brandeis alumnus, gifted surgeon, teacher, and caring practitioner of the healing arts. As a clinician and researcher, you are known for your work in gastroenterology, oncology, pediatric surgery, and the surgery of trauma. For more than 25 years, you have served at the forefront of efforts to broaden and improve health care in your native Nigeria. For your service in the cause of humanity and your contributions to the West African medical community, your alma mater salutes you.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Alawate Ambombola Mabaganje the honorary degree of Doctor of Science and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed and affixed the seal of the university.
Philip Roth. Prolific author, prodigious storyteller, and insightful commentator, Your short stories and books have carved a distinctive niche in American literature. Your many novels, including the award-winning Goodbye Columbus, Portnoy's Complaint, The Anatomy Lesson, Our Gang, and Patrimony, are American classics that reveal the full power of your narrative gift. For your craftsmanship and your willingness to share your literary gifts with students and aspiring writers, Brandeis University is proud to salute you.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Philip Roth the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Congratulations.
Michelle P. Roux. Creative businessman, philanthropist, and humanist, you have established a model of excellence for others in business to follow. You have been a friend of Native Americans, the hungry, and young people throughout our country. You have been a patron of the arts in all their splendid forms and a benefactor to numerous philanthropic institutions and organizations. Brandeis University is proud to recognize your achievements and your humane concern for the less fortunate of our society.
The trustees of Brandeis University confer upon Michelle Roux the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. In witness thereof, they have issued this diploma, duly signed and affixed the seal of the university. Congratulations.
Stuart H. Altman. Stuart H. Altman, noted economist, distinguished educator, and able administrator, you have championed the cause of national health care reform in order to provide financial security for all Americans and advance the state of higher education in America. Through words and deeds, you have enhanced the reputation, resources, and scope of the Florence Heller Graduate School for Advanced Studies in Social Welfare during 14 years as dean, and you have guided the university with steady hands as interim president. Brandeis is proud to bestow its highest honor on a most respected and beloved member of its community.
Stuart H. Altman, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of Brandeis University, I now confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and do hereby grant you the rights, privileges, honors, and dignitaries pertaining thereto.
Have to take my script.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commencement address will be delivered by Dr. Daniel Bell.
Members of the class of '91, ladies and gentlemen, George Bernard Shaw once remarked that a speaker should never tell an audience where he is going, for he may never get there. But the Talmud also says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I have only a few minutes, and I need to be quick. There's also a sign that used to be in the inn in the shtetl, which says, sleep faster, we need the pillows. The title of my talk is Some Serious Thoughts on Jewish Humor, a commentary on the nature of wisdom. Given the heavy burdens of the world, it may seem strange to speak on such a light-hearted topic. I trust, however, you will bear with me. Many years ago, a graduating student sued Columbia University on the ground that he had not received any wisdom. The court dismissed the suit on the ground that the university does not and cannot teach wisdom. Since times change and litigation has become an American way of life, the AAUP, that is the American Association of University Professors, now offers malpractice insurance to liberal arts professors. It is called professorial liability, at $75 a year for $500,000 and $125 for $1 million. Not a bad deal for those interested in the test of contingency and necessity. But the court was right. A university provides information and knowledge, which is different from information, ways of thinking, constructions of argument, explication de texte, but not wisdom. Wisdom is the tears of experience, the practical judgment, what Aristotle called phronesis, the complement of theoretical knowledge. The story is told of a young man drafted into the Israeli Navy who was asked, "Do you know how to swim?" He said, "I know the theory of it." Wisdom is the bridge of experience and imagination over time. The extraordinary fact is that in all Western classical languages, wisdom is the feminine principle. Chachma in Hebrew, Sophia in Greek, Sapientia in Latin, and the carryovers in the modern tongues, La Sagesse in France, Die Weisheit in German, though English is silent on the gender distinction. The Tanakh, the Hebrew Holy Scriptures, as you know, is in three parts: Torah, the law, Nevim, the Nabi, and Ketuvim, the oracular, or more directly, the books of the priests, the prophet, and the wise. In these wisdom books we find, as in Proverbs 8, Chachma, she, is the divine secret in the created world, or as in the wisdom of Solomon, Chachma, she, is an aura of the might of God, the refulgence of eternal light. Wisdom is the listening heart, the melancholy sigh, the distillation of despair, to provide a realistic, if often a despondent view of the world. Even at creation, the story is told of that day when the angels were celebrating the handiwork of the Lord, and as we are all prefigured at the day of creation, a learned rabbi stood at the edge of heaven. One of the angels danced up to him and said, "Rabbi, you are a man of great foresight. Is it not wonderful what the Lord has done? Tell me, are you optimistic or pessimistic?" The rabbi looked at the shining face of the innocent angel and said, "I'm optimistic." Then he looked down at the earth, and the angel said, "Rabbi, if you're optimistic, why are you scowling so?" And the rabbi replied, "To tell you the truth, I don't think my optimism is justified." And an even darker story. When the rabbis had finished writing down the Mishnah, the codification of the oral law after the destruction of the Second Temple, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, it is said, reflected on the history of his time and said pensively, "Tell me, if God truly loved man, would he have created him?" Wisdom is the response to philosophical anthropology. The four questions that Kant marked off as the fields of knowledge. What can I know? What ought I to do? What may I hope? And what is man? The first three of can, ought, and may, of metaphysics, ethics, and religion, are questions of finitude, our abilities and the limits of our knowledge. The fourth is of existence itself. And here the answers have to be given by man to man. These are the perennial questions, historically given religious form. in the Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the fathers, in Augustine's Confessions, in Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling, because they transcend time and place. The notion of a Western culture, or a Eurocentric culture, or a male-dominated culture, these tedious ideological statements that one hears mindlessly in the academy today, are mindless because whatever their origin, as Western, or Jewish, or male or female, these questions speak to all sentient persons who reflect on their lives. Culture is the realm of meanings, the effort to find answers to the existential, ineluctable predicaments that confront all human beings and all human groups in their lives. How to cope with death, the nature of obligation, the character of courage, the depths of love, the understanding of tragedy. Marx once said, and it's Groucho really, it's much harder to do comedy than tragedy, for people laugh at different things but they all cry at the same thing. What marks us off from all other species is the nature of culture. The human species is the only one we know that buries its dead and marks a grave with a stone or a cenotaph to keep memory alive. Culture, then, is the confrontation with these existential situations. The answers vary, for that is the history of human culture. The answers vary because different groups live in different ways, on mountains or plains, on deserts or seas, and their experiences of climate or soil, migrations and expulsions from the lands, shape their responses in religious or other forms. And of these different experiences of history and in multi-group societies, of course we want to explore those experiences and understand the lives of different peoples and races and groups and civilizations. But though the histories have varied, the existential questions remain, which is why, despite all relativism and all historicism, cultures can understand one another and talk to each other as we create a canon of common meanings. Wisdom is the understanding that arises from the translations of these experiences into the common tongue. The wisdom literature we often read is the wisdom of the past, but there's also a wisdom literature of today, and that is my theme. Jewish humor is a wisdom literature that draws upon 1,000 years of experience and gives one a sense of human yearning and its limits. There's a traditional story of a man who approached the Lord and said, "Lord, is it true that in your scale of reckoning, 1,000 years is like a minute?" And God said, "Yes." "And is it true that in your weights of measures, $1,000 is like a penny?" And the Lord said, "Yes." And the man continued, "Lord, I'm a poor man. Give me a penny." And God said, "In a minute." The turn from tradition is the introduction of Yiddish humor. Yiddish humor that wry and sometimes mordant confrontation with modern life that is constantly strained by situations that distort proportion and bring it almost to the breaking point. Henri Bergson, in a somewhat heavy-handed way, said that a situation is invariably comic when it belongs simultaneously to two altogether series of events and is capable of being interpreted in two entirely different meanings at the same time. Thus, in formal logic, if something is contradictory, one proposition has to be true, the other false, but not in Jewish life. Is the story of the rabbi holding court at Beth Din, hearing two women with complaints against one another. The rabbi listened intensely to the first and said, "You're right." The other woman said, "Wait, you haven't heard me." He listened to her and again persuaded. He said, "You're right." The rabbi's wife, Chachma, in a perplexed tone, "How can they both be right?" And the rabbi said, "You're right, too." Equally, there is the story of Sidney Morgenbesser, the Chacham of the Columbia University Philosophy Department, who retired this year. At Oxford many years ago, he was confronted by the linguistic philosopher John Austin, who said to him, "Mr. Morgenbesser, I'm told you believe that two affirmatives make a negative. Now, it's true in the English language that two negatives can make an affirmative, but two affirmatives cannot make a negative. To which Morgan Bessel replied, yeah, yeah. Jewish humor, I should emphasize, is not. A joke is a contrived situation, a manipulated effect, a commodity of the moment. Jewish humor is wit, the play of words, the compression of language to reflect the compression chamber of life. Two men stand outside Lubyanka, the old Gay-Pew dungeon in Moscow. One looks up and sees a sign that says, "Entrance forbidden." And he remarks, if it said you're welcome, do you think I'd go in? Equally, the two men stand out there not saying a word. Eventually, one of them gives a long sigh. The other one says agitatedly, "Yankel, how many times am I telling you not to discuss politics here?" Jewish humor often drains the charge of cosmic significance from suffering by grounding it in the everyday realities. If you want to forget all your troubles, says the Yiddish proverb, put on a shoe that's too tight. Or the two men standing under a tree when something flops on one's head. He looks up and he says, "And for the rich they sing." Or in the Stetlerly observation, when a Jew eats chicken, one or the other has to be sick. Jewish humor, like the writing of Kafka, is the suspension of cause and effect with a moment of the absurd in between. What is the Jewish key on the typewriter? The question mark. Why is it when you ever ask a Jewish intellectual a question, he replies with another question? Why not? What is a question? A question, said Felix Kohn, is really an ambiguous proposition. The answer is its determination. A Talmudic parable reverses the order of events. The rabbi, having finished his drasha, his commentary remarks, "I've got an answer. Who has a question?" The more esoteric version of the parable says, "If God is the answer, what is the question?" What is the most difficult to find? The right question or the right answer? In this also a question is the heart of the educational inquiry. The late Professor Morris Raphael Cohn was once challenged by a student. "Professor Cohn, prove to me I should study logic." And Cohn replied, "And how will you know it's a good proof?" Another time when Cohn had been lecturing on Berkeley and solipsism, a student at the back of the room called out, "Professor Cohn, how do you know I exist?" And Cohn replied, "Who's asking?" Jewish humor is a rebellious rationalism. After World War I, my Jewish grandmother, living in the Litvak Triangle, was told that the borders having been shifted, she was no longer living in Russia, but in Poland. "Thank God," she said, "I was getting so tired of those Russian winters." In Israel, a man is laying on a railroad track. "What are you doing?" he was asked. "Committing a suicide," he replied wearily. "But if you're committing a suicide, what are you doing with a loaf of bread in your hand?" "In this country," he replied, "before the trains come, you can starve to death." And in Miami Beach, a man is nagged by his wife as they lie in bed. "Morris, go close the window, it's cold outside." And he replied, "If I close the window, it'll be warm outside." Jewish humor, as my friend Irving Kristol once remarked, dances along a knife edge that separates religious faith from sheer nihilism. And that is the clue, I believe, to the unique quality of Jewish humor. For Jewish humor is the tension of two contradictory elements in its makeup: a Hebrew theology, which is deeply conservative, and a Yiddish experience, which is intensely radicalizing. Hebrew theology reads the nature of man in the histories of Sodom and Gomorrah, of Babylon and Rome. It has witnessed the sweeping and unrestrained impulses to break the law, to unloose murder and pillage on populations, to inflict cruelty and suffering on victims, such as have occurred and sadly will repeatedly occur throughout the millennium. But Yiddish experience has been radicalizing. because it has been an experience of humiliation. The humiliation of Jewish students in pre-war Poland who had to sit on ghetto benches in the lecture room and chose to stand rather than accept the condition. The humiliation of being barred from positions in universities despite their evident abilities, to the humiliation of being either pariah or parvenu, a stranger often in a strange land that could not be their own when entering the modern age. Humiliation is one of the most powerful emotions that lead to ressentiment. The desire for revenge against being treated as an inferior and degraded by those who have the power, a power enforced by the knout or the policeman's stick. I think of a Vietnamese intellectual I met many, many years ago in Asia, who had grown up under the French, but had been a star graduate at the Grandes Écoles. "Why are you a radical?" I asked. And he replied, "How would you like to be tutoyed all your life by a coarse French policeman?" And one thinks equally the experience of so many black students in the United States, in South Africa, in the Soviet Union, and other experiences of discrimination. The responses thus are harsh and biting. And in the case of Yiddish humor, the biting is verbal aggression, the put down, the assertion of superior wit to overcome the experience of humiliation. If there's a simple moral to all of this, it's the need to give respect. Not just equality before the law and civil rights of access to place and position, but respect for the individual as a person. The respect that guards against the degradation that robs an individual of the ability to act in a human way. But I should also say as a teacher that while everyone deserves respect, not everyone deserves praise. Praise is due for effort, for merit, for the earned achievement, which gives one the degree and the rites of passage into the next stage of life. May I give you my respect and my praise. I return finally to the older wisdom for the blessing, the wisdom of Koheleth, the Hebrew term derived from Kehillah, a congregation gathered for the purpose of learning, and which in the Greco-Latin form is known as Ecclesiastes. Says the preacher, "Rejoice in your youth, young man and woman, and make the most of the days of your youth, that your heart and your eyes show you the way. But remember that for all these things, God will call you into account. Remember him before the silver cord is snapped and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well. Wise men's words are like goads, and like nails driven home with a mallet are those who master the collected sayings of their mentors. Beyond this, my sons and daughters, be warned. Of the making of books there is no end, and much study is exhausting. This is the end of the matter. You have heard it all." Thank you.
Following the benediction, the audience is requested not to enter the aisles until the academic procession on stage has left the amphitheater. Father Leonard Copeland, chaplain, Bethlehem Chapel, will pronounce the benediction. Will the audience please rise?
Now I know why the last speaker is so popular. You want him to say what he has to say and get out of here. I'd like to add the congratulations of the chaplaincy, Rabbi Al Axelrad and Reverend Nathaniel Mays and myself. Congratulate you and wish you all the very best as we bring this commencement to a close. And so I ask you to join with me now as we bow our heads, believing in the presence of God. Almighty God, you have called your people to gather in your name and to give praise and glory to you for your gifts and to remind us always of your faithfulness and the need to respond to your loving care. Lord, we are grateful for the men and women of the class of 1991 who share and display an awesome array of knowledge and wisdom, commitment, and a generous spirit. Continue to bless them throughout their lives with your abundant gifts for the betterment of our world. Lord, we are so grateful for the people who have made this day a reality by their love, friendship, and support, especially parents, faculty and staff, family and friends. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as your people, proclaiming your goodness and making a commitment this day to enrich our lives in the pursuit of peace, justice, and equality for all. Men and women of the class of 1991 and all here present, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His Spirit guide you in becoming a moving force that changes our world by lives of service, respect, and mutual concern for all people. Class of 1991, go forward. Let the world know you are alive and well, and you mean to change things. Godspeed.